So often, imposter syndrome, it's not true. It's that negative voice that we make up these stories based on sometimes just nothing. And we need to be able to just tell it to, you know what, you're trying to protect me. Thank you for your help. I got this. I don't need you right now. And then go forth with that strength. I love Strengths Finders assessments because it highlights what you're good at. So lean into those strengths and any kind of inventory or list that you can make on your own of what's good about you, please do that. And please carry it around with you.
Welcome to E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy, a podcast brought to you by the Empathy Collective, a consulting firm that helps business leaders inspire change, one conversation at a time. We are building a community of like-minded leaders and experts who all share the same passion, taking care of people at work. Whether you are a plant manager trying to humanize the factory floor, a small business owner wanting to build a strong culture that lasts, or a corporate executive striving to prevent burnout on your team, you belong in this community. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. For much of her 30-year corporate career, my guest today was often the only woman, and often the only woman of color, in high-pressure rooms with high expectations. An introvert with stage fright, she was never the loudest voice at the table, but she learned how to be one of the most powerful. Not by changing who she was, but by owning it. Casey Carpenter, CEO and founder of Speak and Own It Communications, is a woman who has turned her own story of invisibility, self-doubt, and silence into a movement of confident, authentic leadership. In this episode, we explore how introverted and highly sensitive leaders can cultivate executive presence without sacrificing who they are. We talk about why true confidence isn't measured by how loudly you speak, but by how aligned you are with your values, your purpose, and your voice. And we uncover how empathy, authentic expression, and the courage to be seen don't just shape careers, they have the power to transform lives. This is E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy. Welcome to the show today, Casey. It is really a delight to have you here. I was super excited about this conversation in particular because I just attended a women's conference last week and I sat next to someone at lunch who is an introvert, and she was one of the keynote speakers, and she was lamenting about how there's just so many stereotypes around introverted people and what the external perception is of introverted people, and then all the prep time that you have to, mental prep time that you have to go through before you then get up on stage and speak to someone. So I know you're smiling and shaking your head. I know you can
Yes.
relate to this. And as a fellow introvert myself, it's fascinating to me how many people have said, Rebecca, you're a podcaster and you don't like to talk. I literally had someone tell me that because I said, I don't really like to talk. I like to listen.
Yes.
And I just get this shocked response. But what do you mean you're a podcaster? You should love to talk. And
Mm.
so I would love to today just break down some of those stereotypes of introverted people. And I love on your LinkedIn profile, you have in your tagline, quiet does not equal invisible.
Yeah.
So anyway, so much to unpack there, but love having you here today.
Oh, it's so great to be here with you.
I can't wait to hear your journey too, because I know you started off in the corporate world, but now you're a coach. What did that path look like? What did that journey look like?
To be honest, it looked like a mess. As a young professional, because I was so shy, scared, introverted, all of those words, I never invested the time it took to really learn how to market myself to get a job. And I ended up working in some pretty crummy places right off the bat. And when I did find my footing, I worked for a nonprofit for 5 years, which was okay. I was not making enough money. I had to take a second job, telemarketing, selling cable TV to Manhattan residents. And guess what? No one ever hung up on me. And I did that for 5 years concurrently. I guess it was the universe throwing me a lifeline because I ran into a former colleague from the nonprofit who had made a complete transformation. Business suit, briefcase. This was a woman who used to wear jumper dresses and sneakers. And I said to her, what in the world did you do? Look at you. And she said, I became a district manager. And I'm like, what's a district manager? What do you mean? She said, I went into sales. And she said it like that, sales. She said, get into sales. I listened to that woman, and I gotta find her because those words changed my life. I took one sales job, and that was a miss because I didn't realize you need to understand the product and you need to love your product. I didn't get it. But I only stayed there a year, and I got a job. I landed a job with an organization that was just kicking off managed healthcare as a concept. And they said the magic words, "We will train you." And that's how I got started because it gave me the foundation of what I needed to market, to have that sales language that I probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. And it boosted my confidence so that I got really comfortable standing in front of groups and holding the attention of the room. I got good at it. That's how it happened.
That sounds like my dad when I was looking for internships in college. He was like, "You will never be out of a job if you go into sales." Of course, he was looking at it from a practical perspective,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
don't know why your friend threw out that advice. I mean, did you know, or she just threw that out there like, "You gotta do this"?
I think it was partly that, and I was just awestruck at the transformation this woman had made. I mean, literally, it was as if she grew up. So the former version of her was adorable, pixie haircut, jumper dresses, and Keds sneakers. So can you visualize a person that looks like this? Now picture a woman in a blue, crisp business suit with a beautiful white blouse, carrying a briefcase and high heel patent leather pumps. And I just was like, "Who are you and how did you do this?" And look at you, and I'm just awestruck.
Did you feel like did you go through a similar transformation when you went into sales?
It may not have been physical, but definitely the confidence piece and definitely the whole aspect of just communicating more outwardly. And it was a journey because it did not all happen in that job, in that role, and then that position, but it started me off.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Had I not run into her, what might have happened? Who knows?
I'm always fascinated by how little things that happen in your life really pivot you in really crazy ways. And then you go back and think about what if this didn't happen? Where would my life be right now? It is a really fascinating exercise
Yeah.
to conduct. But
Yeah.
yeah, so you had this launch pad. You had this launch pad in sales. I love to understand as you were trying to, own your identity and learn how to communicate better, build that presence. I remember you told me that this in one of our previous conversations where in many cases you were one of the only ones in the room. Women, black woman, introvert, all the things, right? Was there a moment when you realized presence wasn't about being the loudest one in the room?
There was, and the funny thing was when it happened, I didn't even then realize how significant it was, and I'll tell you quickly what happened. I remember this as if it were yesterday. I was in boot camp training, so this wonderful organization, the healthcare organization that trained us, and I was failing out. I found that the exams to be really hard. We were learning complicated insurance technology, federal regs, state laws. I was lost. I was a nonprofit kid and it was like, okay, donors, I had to talk to donors. This was a whole different world for me. And I was standing outside the director's office almost crying because I thought I was going to lose my job. So she called me in. She did express her concern that I was a slow learner with these concepts. And she said, however, we have noticed your commitment when it comes to the employee presentation. The employee presentation was a 9-page script that we had to memorize verbatim, not one word out of place. And this is a script that we would use when we would enroll employees of our corporate clients in our health plan. So, and I was good at memorizing. I was 28 years old. And I realized that I was good. I had presence. I was good delivering this presentation and connecting with people. I won a district contest and my district manager said to me, "Case, you got presents." And I said, "Oh, thanks, I think." I didn't really even know what he meant. But what he was sharing with me was that there was something natural, a natural gift that I had in terms of speaking and people would stop what they were doing to listen to me even when I was 28, 29 years old. Now I have harnessed that and I even teach my clients today how to do that. How do you win the room? How do you own the room? How do you get everybody to stop what they're doing and pay attention to you so that the message is not lost? So that was a really important lesson. I wasn't loud. There were a lot of kids there who were the loudest. They were the fastest. Maybe they got promoted faster than I did. But by being who I was and harnessing that natural gift of connection, that's how I really, I would say, brought out my authenticity. And again, it took me a few years to really understand, what's he talking about? What's presence?
Yeah, especially in your late 20s. What is that? What does
What
that
is
mean?
that? What's he talking about? Thanks, I think.
It's so amazing to me that he was able to recognize that in you. I feel like a lot of struggles that we introverts have, especially in the corporate world, is the loudest tend to get ahead of the rest because their voices are heard and they are more visible, therefore, because their voice is louder and they can play the politics and climb the ladder and get to those roles because they're using their voice and their persuasive skills and their swagger, whatever, to make, get stuff done. It's unfortunate to me because I think then the introverts are seen as weaker or, not as self-confident. So that presence that you talk about, what does it take for someone who's quieter or not necessarily owning the room with their voice by being loud? How do the introverts become visible?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. And a lot of my work is rooted in strengths. It's in finding out what are you individually good at, and we amplify those things. So maybe if they don't talk a lot, like you said, you don't talk a lot, maybe you're an amazing listener. Maybe you're someone who tends to remember conversations. So I would ask, how can you parlay that into a more visible strength? I had one director in corporate America who could see that I was smart and I had a lot to contribute, but I was quiet. And you know what she said? Think out loud. So here was another pivotal moment where you mean it's okay to just kind of share? Because I thought that was messy, and I thought extroverted people, I would see them do that, and I would see them talk, 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 really not saying much of anything. Talk, 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 land on an answer, and then they would say what the answer was, and I'm kind of like, "Why are you wasting our time hearing all that stuff? Get to the point." So I realized that maybe the skill, I see you laughing at that. Sorry, extroverts, I do love you. Maybe the skill is that you're able to distill thought and just say it. And when you speak, it's like boom. You don't have to be loud in order to do that. So I think the gift is trying to find what we each have as a really unique skill, if you will, special sauce, and leverage the heck out of that thing. Might be surprised.
I like that, and I love that you mentioned that specific example about thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Because as I was preparing for this interview today, I was thinking I need to talk to Casey about extroverts thinking out loud.
Yes.
Because it doesn't come naturally to people like you and me. We think, "Oh, if we're just verbalizing our thoughts, like, what value is that adding to the room?"
Exactly.
So, I need to process this internally and then, say something of value.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've had this reaction from people before, but as I'm processing my thoughts, I've had people look at me and say, "Rebecca, you're kind of freaking me out. I don't know what you're thinking right now," or "You have this look on your face," or I get comments from extroverts who are
Yeah.
uncomfortable with the silence because I'm processing. And so they
Yeah.
freak out and make comments like that. So I don't know if you've had that kind of commentary before.
I I coach several clients on this, and I encourage them to do is just be a little more transparent about the way that they process, kind of show people how the sausage is made, if you will. And that's saying something like, "Okay, I heard you. I really do just need a moment to think about that and to process it and to be quiet," and then state their answer. Or another thing for meetings that maybe there's a lot of ping-ponging and there's not a you may feel self-conscious. I don't have enough time to ask them to wait a second. So maybe it sounds like this. Here's my thinking on this. It's going to sound a little messy because I haven't really fully thought it out. But at first glance, this is what I'd like to say, and then say what you have to say. So
Yeah.
either way, you're still contributing, And it may not be in the nice, neat package that we like to present, but you're in there, you're in the conversation, and I think the worst feeling is to feel as though you're in a meeting and there's all this action going on in front of you, and you're almost on the sidelines watching it, and you're like, but what?" And not able to jump in. You need on-ramps. That's what I actually call them with my clients, on-ramps, so that you can get yourself into the conversation, especially when you know the answers and you're just kind of sitting there sitting on it. No, get in there.
On-ramps. I love that. Do you have some specific examples of on-ramps that
Yes.
clients have used?
Yes, so it might be something like, "I'm really glad we're talking about this topic. I'd love to contribute my thoughts on it."
Mm,
Think about a car merging, and now you're in there. Or, "I couldn't help but notice." I need to jump in here. "Couldn't help but notice what Bill said, and I'd like to go back to that for a moment. Here's what I'd like to add."
yeah. Yeah, that's really helpful, especially when you're sitting there and you don't wanna feel rude and interrupt. How can you be very smooth about just entering into the conversation when everyone around you is just constantly verbalizing their thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely, and you don't wanna leave a meeting where you haven't contributed anything, because what happens is you feel badly because, "Man, I should have said that," and you're sitting there beating yourself up, and then you leave, and it doesn't make you feel empowered.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to speak up, say something in every single meeting that you attend at work.
Yeah, that's great advice. And if you're constantly leaving meetings where you weren't able to contribute and you didn't have those on ramps, you didn't have those tools in your toolbox to just on ramp into the conversation, that could eventually just fuel further imposter syndrome and fuel your lack of confidence. Like I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I'm worthy of being here. I talk about imposter syndrome a lot in this podcast. I have leaders, in many cases, very senior leaders, especially women, who still have imposter syndrome despite their title and they clearly earned that title. And it's still a big struggle for them.
Yeah.
So what would you say are some practical steps people can take
Mhm.
to show up more powerfully, especially in high stakes conversations, without feeling like they have to compromise who they are and their authenticity?
Oh gosh, I love this question. I did an exercise with a work team, and again, the foundation of it was strengths, because as they were talking, I kept hearing a lot of doubt. They were in the room with more senior people. They didn't feel that they had the place or space to speak, and I said, "Yes, you do, because first of all, no one knows your perspective about the project more than you do. Your senior vice president isn't as close to it as you are, so you do need to contribute." And what I had them do was make an inventory. So I said, "Okay, but we're gonna take a marker, we're gonna take a piece of flip paper, and I wanna invite you to write down things that stand out in your mind. Maybe you've heard that people have said good about you, compliments. And I also want you to write down your strengths as you perceive them." And so we got everything from education or awards, maybe what they majored in school, and as well as kind of the brags. "Oh, someone, had a really good, my, senior vice president sent me a complimentary email." I said, "Okay, do you keep a file of these cheers?" Then please start doing it. I had them take a picture of their lists with their phones. So they picture of this, so that when you need to call forth a visual, like a real anchor and a structure, look at that list. Those are your strengths. That's who you are individually. And anchor, ground yourself in that, because so often imposter syndrome, it's not true. It's that negative voice that we make up these stories based on sometimes just nothing. And we need to be able to just tell it to, "You know what? You're trying to protect me. Thank you for your help. I got this. I don't need you right now." And then go forth with that strength. I love Strengths Finders assessments because it highlights what you're good at. So lean into those strengths, and any kind of inventory or list that you can make on your own of what's good about you, please do that. And please carry it around with you.
Yeah, I love your reference to Strengths Finder or Clifton Strengths. Is it's what I love about that assessment is it only focuses on what you're good at and your strengths. Because I feel like, the typical job interview question, right? What are your strengths and what are your
Yes.
weaknesses?
Yes.
And then you always feel weird answering the weaknesses part. The Clifton Strengths really helps highlight those unique talents. I mean, just like the district manager who told you, "Case, you got presence." That was a strength.
Yeah.
So own it and live it and use it to your advantage. The weaknesses or whatever you want to call them, they're the things that often they don't come naturally to us and they don't give us energy. So we're just, you know, trying to churn something out and where we could just lean on someone else where it does come innately to them and focus on stuff that comes naturally to us rather than spending a ton of energy just trying to do stuff that we're just not that good at.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I love that concept, and I also love what you shared about, the cheer sheet. I actually had someone when I was in corporate, I had a senior female leader tell me, "Rebecca, keep a" well, she called it a brag sheet. She's like, "Keep a brag sheet. I don't care what it is, an Excel spreadsheet or Word doc or whatever, and just capture all of the compliments or positive feedback that you get from anyone in the company, and then
Yes.
just refer back to it."
Mm.
Especially on days when you're having a tough time.
Yeah.
So, great advice.
I saw their physiology change too in this group. It was a small group.
Mm.
There were 5 of them, and I could see as they were reading their list, they stopped hunching over. It was very subtle, but I could see it, and I bet you would notice that too, as someone trained to look at these things.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm sure. Because yeah, if you're talking about what energizes you, how could you not sit up in your chair and feel more confident?
Yeah, why did they make us do things that we're not good at? But that's another podcast.
That is another podcast, but is a waste of time. I mean, if you talk to anyone at Gallup, they will tell you it's a waste of time.
Yeah,
Go find someone, partner with someone else where that is their innate strength. Don't spend time doing something that does not come naturally to you.
absolutely.
So let's go back to empathy.
Mm,
Because I would love your take, especially, working with a lot of senior leaders and coaching them. I oftentimes get in front of senior leaders who, because, our business, we're a change readiness consulting firm. Well, the core thread of our business is empathy and dealing with the human side of change. And I often get senior leaders who come to me and say, I understand this concept and the importance of it, but I don't want to come off as weak. And empathy is a term that it's often poorly defined, first of
yeah,
all.
yeah,
But it's also just has this reputation in business environments of being weak or indecisive or you're trying to be the peacekeeper and sing kumbaya or whatever. Like people just have all these stereotypes about empathy. And having sat on an executive team in my corporate career, I saw firsthand, especially with men, how I almost felt like they were trying deliberately not to show empathy in their role
yeah.
because they were afraid that it would show weakness. And all of these men were fathers, were, caring individuals. I'm sure in their personal lives they did not go home and just bark orders at people.
Right.
But yeah, it's like this mask or this facade that business leaders feel that they have to wear in that environment. And I think it's ridiculous. What is your take on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because I can't remember exactly what client I was with, but we were talking about this whole notion of not being able to have empathy and drive for results at the same time. And
Mhm.
I was like, well, why not? And I thought back to my sales environment where we would go through rings of fire for our leaders. We would do anything for this company. And I thought about it. It's like, why was that? Because the leaders treated us well. The distinction I want to make is I think you have to get to know people on a really personal level. What I think you need to do is treat them in the way they want to be treated. So it's good that I landed in sales because I love recognition. You can just say in a call, Thank you, Casey, for XYZ. And I'm happy because you noticed. Or if you want to buy me an award, great. Or if you want to send me to Bali, even better. But the crux of the heart of that is that I feed on that. The fact that you recognize me. You know what that really says? I feel seen. So, what is it for everybody? Everyone is not wired like me. Some people will put their head down and work. The last thing they want is to be called out. They're like, oh God. But maybe they appreciate something else. So, leaders need to know what that is for every single individual on that team. If they don't know, they got to ask and then start serving up their leadership in a very customized, individualized way. And that's how you get teams to endear who you are as a leader. You're going to get results because they will love you, because you are taking the extra time to know who they are inside and out. And acknowledge when you can't do something. Hey, you know what? I know that we had to have everybody work really late. I know that family time is important to you. I'm really sorry about that. Let me make it up to you. You've got to see every single individual on the team. And what I see in leadership is it's whitewash. Give me one brush, dip it in the paint. We treat everybody the same. They all get $25 gift certificates. Can't do that.
Do you think it's laziness? Why do you think we're taking that whitewash approach? Is it literally just apathy? Like, I don't have time to be customized with my employees.
I think leaders are tired. I think they would love to do this, but they're doing so much already. And this is work. This is serious. This is no joke. This is not a one and done. Okay, Casey, what's important to you? We got 5 minutes. This is something that takes time to develop, to unpack. I think it's great if you can even do it individually as well as within a team setting, reinforcing it, showing people in little ways that you heard them. So it could be the next time they're all in the office. Maybe again, somebody just likes to be seen. You cross paths in the hall. Hey, it's great to see you. How you doing? Hey, I remember that your son, Evan, had a soccer game. How'd that go? And what I'm talking about is not rocket science, and there are people who are doing this already. I say you got to amplify it even more because we are working in tough times where I don't need to tell you, Rebecca, how much change there is. And the very fact that change right now feels like a physical assault to us.
Yeah.
So, where is the safe place for us? And maybe if a leader is savvy, wise, and makes the time, they make that work cocoon a safe space where people can feel good. They don't have to worry. Again, they feel safe and secure. They're going to go through rings of fire for you.
I wish with all my heart that more leaders would, take the time to really adopt that methodology with their team. Let's be realistic. As we wrap up the dialogue, I'm thinking about all those leaders out there who are burned out, they're tired, they're getting pressure from their boss, the board of directors, whatever pressure is coming down on them. And they're thinking, "Oh, this is one more thing I have to add to my to-do list." From your perspective as a coach, what would be the one piece of advice you would give a leader who's in that kind of almost burnt out phase? How would you encourage them to make this part of their role rather than something additional that they have to do on top of their day job? Like how
And it might. Yeah, I can't guarantee that it won't feel like an extra thing, but I wouldn't tell them. I would ask them, and I would say, think about your career and think about the people who you've reported to. Did you ever have a leader who you felt really took the time to get to know you, to get you, to understand what fueled you and what depleted you? And did that leader repeatedly try to facilitate situations where you got what you needed? And I don't know. I might have had this once in my career. It doesn't come around a lot. So what was it for you and how did that leader deliver that? How did you respond? How did you approach the work? And then there's the mic drop question. Is it worth you doing this for the people who report to you? And if you think that it is worth it, what's one step you could take tomorrow in order to start putting this in place for them?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's all about the baby steps, right? What is
Yep.
that one thing
Yep.
you can do?
Yep.
And maybe it's something simple like How can I show up differently in my one-on-ones?
Yes.
Instead of just going through the list of to-dos, right, and then hanging up.
Yes.
That's not extra work, it's just using your time differently, right?
Is, and it's just thinking about different approaches. What could I do? So you have that person on the team that's always raring to go. Let them lead something for goodness sake.
Yeah,
Coach them, praise them, tell them what they did really well, and maybe give them one point of one recommendation. Hey, here's something to think about next time. But you did great. How'd it feel for you? Terrific. So when we get these opportunities, I'm going to put you up there.
that's so cool, and I think what people don't realize too is how rewarding it is for you as a leader
Yes.
to see the reaction from your team when you
Yes.
start behaving that way.
Yes.
They will give back. Like you
Yeah.
said, they'll jump through rings of fire.
And believe me, we did.
I mean, what a wonderful way to end this conversation. I mean, just that one takeaway of is, it's not rocket science. It doesn't have to be this huge list of to-dos. What is one thing that you as a leader can do to make the lives of your people better? And guess what? It reciprocates. It will come right back at you, and you will feel better as a human when you go home to your family at night, knowing that you took care of your people and you lifted them up and helped them feel valued and seen and heard.
Yeah, make work that place for them.
Yes, yes, make it a safe haven, right? Make it a place they're excited to go to and not like TGIF, can't wait to get out of here.
Yeah, yeah, or they're texting under the desks because they're distracted during a meeting, and you can tell in the gallery view when people are disengaged.
Yeah, even in the virtual setting, cameras off. I don't care about this. Yeah.
Yeah. No, who wants that? No.
We spend too much time at work to be doing that kind of stuff. So thank you so much, Casey, for sharing your wisdom with us today. It's been such a pleasure, and I could feel your presence throughout this whole conversation. I understand why that manager told you that back in your 20s. It is a gift.
Thank you so much. My pleasure, of course.
If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you would like to learn more about the Empathy Collective, check out our website, theempathycollective.com. Life is too short. Let's take care of each other at work so that together we can make this world a better place.